live.
Hey, welcome to AirPlay. I'm Coni Koepfinger, and I welcome you to our show today. We have an exciting show, and our show today is going to key on creativity and collaboration. Creativity, what is that? And what's worse, how do we teach it? We teach our children art, music, science, reading, writing, but how do we teach it? Well, I studied for years theater, and then I went back and I got a master's in writing so that I could teach writing. And I really want to see the nuts and bolts of the process, the creative process, not just how to write, not just how to be an actor, not just how to write music, but how to be creative. And there's a lot of theories on that. And I'm going to invite in our science advisor, Robert Rhodes, because we are going to talk today about a project, a brand new project called Virtuoso that Robert and I have just embarked on this exciting novel about creativity. Again, the title of the book is Virtuoso, and if there's any agents or funders out there that want to understand more about process, please contact us. You can get us through our website at the on-air players. And, you know, creativity is vital to our society. Don't you think so, Robert?
Absolutely, Connie, and it's great to be here.
Thanks. So what do you have for me on creativity? We started on this project, and you know, you were working as a science advisor on my shows and Joe Eisen's shows, and then you started coming on board with AirPlay, and we started talking more and more about the process of creativity and why can't we teach creativity like we teach science or biology, because creativity is about creation, and isn't that the world we live in? Right?
It is, and it's such an important skill to focus on these days. I want to take us back to 1997, where Jane Hirshfield, who was an American poet, essayist, and translator, she wrote in her book, Nine Gates, Entering the Mind of Poetry. In the wholeheartedness of concentration, world and self begin to cohere. With that state comes an enlarging of what may be known, what may be felt, and what may be done. Every good poem begins in language awake to its own connections, language that hears itself and what is around it, sees itself and what is around it, looks back at those who look into its gaze, and knows more, perhaps even, than we do about who we are, what we are. It begins, that is, in the mind and body of concentration. By concentration, I mean a particular state of awareness, penetrating, unified, and focused, yet also permeable and open. This quality of consciousness, although not easily put into words, is instantly recognizable. Aldous Huxley described it as a moment the doors of perception open. James Joyce called it epiphany. The experience of concentration may be quietly physical. A simple, unexpected sense of deep accord between yourself and everything. Connie, we know that you're a poet as well as a playwright. Please tell us how that creative consciousness comes to you when you write.
Well, Robert, especially the poetry, I have absolutely no control over my poetry. I can go in and revise, but when poetry comes, it's like a river flowing. It just comes out. And it's interesting because as a playwright, I work very hard, and I am a craftsman, and I studied playwriting since the early days of my career as an undergrad, and I've studied theater, and it's a craft. I build plays, but poetry just comes to me, and I feel like it's not legit. I really do. I'm almost embarrassed by saying I'm a poet. And I know, I respect other poets, but I took a couple poetry classes in college. I took poetry analysis as well as writing poetry. I didn't mean to. I took a class in prosody, which was, that's like music theory. And the funny thing is that I was told repeatedly by my teachers, by my professors, that I really have something. And being that I don't know what that is, it kind of freaks me out. So I don't claim to be a poet, but I enjoy my poetry, and I do have a book or two out there. So, you know, with that said, it's very elusive to me. Shakespeare was the same way. He didn't really claim, he was a prolific poet, but he didn't really claim the poetry as much as the playwriting.
Yes, yes. No, Connie, I want to talk about today's society a little bit. If you remember James Baldwin, the American novelist, essayist, playwright, poet, and social critic, he describes the struggle of the artist in his book, Notes of a Native Son. Something awful is happening to a civilization when it ceases to produce poets, and what is even more crucial, when it ceases in any way whatever to believe in a report that only the poets can make. So Connie, tell us, what is your struggle and what do you hope to awaken in us?
Well, you know, when I was a kid, I was 17, and I remember reading the paper and saying, is this my society? Is this my world? Are these my fellow human beings? And I got really upset. I said, why is everybody being so violent? And then I started reading Marshall McLuhan and different people, and I realized, whoa, we are what we eat. And we're watching violence, and we're depicting violence, and we're depicting greed. And I said, this is going to come out in our streets. This whole mess that we have in our media, in our movies, in our television, even the Three Stooges. I remember as a kid, my mother used to let us watch the Three Stooges, and my oldest sister, as soon as we were finished watching that, would be doing the dishes, and she'd swat me like Mo Howard. You know, that's the kind of thing. It's like, it's just, you do absorb it. We're animals. We mimic other people. We do pick it up. When I'm with somebody that has an accent, I just like start picking it up. It's what we do. And, you know, the funny thing is like, I start warning people. I start saying this. I remember having a speech class and saying, well, no, we're not all, just because we watch a violent movie or we read a violent book doesn't mean we're all going to go out and be murderers and rapists. But there's some truth to that. So we have to watch what we put out there. So since the early days of the 90s, I started writing a pedagogy to understand creativity and to combat violence. So that's my mission, to actually make the world a more creative place. And I believe that if we're more creative, we'll be less destructive. Yay.
That's so excellent. Thank you for doing that.
Oh, well, you know, I'm trying. I didn't say I need funding.
Well,
so hopefully we'll get it. But
let me tell you a little bit about the book that Connie and I are working on. It's called Virtuoso, and it's a short novel about Kitty Carson, a musical prodigy in high school who finds herself living between two worlds. Kitty seeks a mentor in her music teacher, but he does not acknowledge her immense talent. Instead, Beethoven himself appears to her and becomes her mentor, liberating her creative spirit to compose her own music through effortless flow.
Thank you, Robert. That was wonderful. Yes. And so without further ado, let's bring on board one of the stars of AirPlay, Ms. Lani Cerveris Cataldi, who's going to read a chapter from the book Virtuoso by me, Coni Koepfinger, and Robert Rhodes. Thank you. Enjoy. Bye-bye.
Chapter 1. I always said that I do not believe in consummate evil. Perhaps I still don't, but I can't turn away from the truth. He seemed like an ordinary mortal, a typical high school teacher. He walked about with that air of arrogance, sufficient enough to get him through a typical school day. It was the beginning of a new year with a fresh crop of young minds to cultivate. He stood on the stage of the auditorium, peering at the face of innocence as the students filed in. Mr. Karp, the director of the music program at Woodmont High, barked at the students who attempted to greet him. Some looked at him for guidance. some for inspiration, some looked the other way. Perhaps they were the lucky ones. Yes, it was a new year, a time of new beginnings for all. Kitty Carson saw that man on the stage, and she recognized him. She had been to every parade, every football game, every concert, and she hadn't even started high school yet. She knew this man, this very powerful, talented man, because he had the power to help her. He would take her into the land of Mozart and Beethoven and Wagner, a land where music became real and reality is left far behind. Kitty's heart beats fast as she climbs the auditorium steps. Why did she pick that entrance? Why does he have to be standing right there? Is this destiny? Surely it means something. But what exactly it is remains to be seen. If she speaks to him, would he think that she was too bold? If she passes by without a word, would he think she's apathetic? These thoughts flood through her head, but this is only high school orientation. The special ensemble tryouts are not until tomorrow. He might later not even remember her or this moment, but she would. 3 more steps and she will be at his mercy. She gulps and rehearses his name in her mind. Suddenly the words begin to form aloud. Good morning, Mr. Karp. He smiled at her, but was immediately drawn to the sound of his name from across the room. It was the vice principal, Mr. Holstein, a large, cumbersome fellow, aging and unable to carry the music stands he was toting. Mr. Karp rushed to his assistance without a second thought. Hey there, Holstein. Let me help you. You were told not to carry things anymore. I know, Mr. Karp, but I couldn't bear the thought of asking you for assistance so early in the year. It seems like that's all I do these days. When you need help, old man, you need help. Oh, I know that, Mr. Karp, but at what price? Both men shared a sinister laugh as they carried off the music stands. Kitty doesn't understand what Mr. Holstein means by that comment, nor why they were both laughing. Still, Kitty knew that Mr. Karp had a reputation for being unkind to his peers. He had no patience for anyone that appeared to waste his time. For this reason, many of Kitty's friends refused to take music. It was sheer terror being in his class. Nevertheless, she looked forward to it. What would this man teach her that she didn't already know? She began piano lessons at age 4 and could read music at age 7. She could play Mozart and Bach with ease. But that's how she fell in love with the flute. It slept next to her in its case on the nightstand. Sometimes she would wake and check to see if it was safely still there, because often her dreams would tell her that it was lost, that someone had crept into her room while she was sleeping and stole it. The nightmare was always the same. Her flute was lost. Only moments before her audition at the concert hall, and her flute was gone. She thought that she had recognized the thief, but she wasn't sure. It was certainly a familiar face. It made no sense. Why would anyone want to shatter her dream? She would awake in a cold sweat, reaching over to touch the case, lifting its lid and feeling that smooth metal inside. It was her comfort. It was her life. It was her reason to wake every morning, even though she knew she would have to face the terrors of the day.